So very good morning and welcome to this particular discussion on operations management. And here we're going to see a topic from Unit 4, which is designing the operations. And the topic today for discussion is approaches to product design. So let us discuss this particular content in detail. Yeah, so this is what is going to be the topic today. So let us understand what it means by product design, because before we get into approaches to product design, we must know what is product design itself. Now, design is actually, it is said as a process, and it is said as a process of creating new products. And there are two more things here. It actually says that it is not only creating new products, but creating the products that meet the customer demands and also integrating the functionality, aesthetics, usability, and cost consideration. So you want to break up the definition into like this. First of all, it is actually a process. Product design is a process. And second is actually, it's a process of what? It's a process of creating new products. And the new products, what they should, what is the criteria? You can't just like create a new product, right? You have to have some very clear criteria. So what are the criteria? They have to meet the customer needs, the needs of the customer. And second, the demand of the market. So demand of the market. Third is actually the process of integration. You have to integrate functionality and aesthetics, usability, and concentration. So four things you have to integrate. So this is actually the process of a product design. And why it matters? So some of the key points is one is actually it improves the product life cycle and sustainability, and it enhances the customer satisfaction and user experience. So let us get into the next slide. Now, what are the key objectives of a product design? One is definitely it is actually meeting the requirements of the customer. So that is actually the main objective. So you can't just like that design a product. It has to meet the customer requirements, the user needs, and the expectations of the user. And then, as I told you in the introduction, the functionality. Functionality is nothing but what the product is supposed to do. For example, if you talk about a mobile phone, it is supposed actually to ensure users talk to each other. Okay, so that is the main functionality. It is the communication tool. And reliability is also a very important part where it ensures the product functions consistently. And cost optimization is also a very, very important part because you have to develop a product with respect to the organization also in mind. So you have to really minimize the resource utilization and maximize the value. And scalability is the product should be able to be developed across different geographies, different nations when the requirement comes up. It should not be that limited to one particular country, or scaling up a product should become so complex. Next is what are the traditional approaches to product design? So what is the traditional approaches? Actually, it is currently the traditional approaches they follow is a linear process, which is actually a sequential. First, you get an idea, then you design it, then you do a prototyping of it, then you do a testing of it, and then a production. This is the linear sequential idea. Now, what are the disadvantages of it? Limitation of it is actually when there is a market is changing very fast. Now, this idea is going to take a lot of time. So the response time is going to be very slow. And then flexibility, because you can see it's a fixed widget structure encompassing the 5 elements. So it is flexible, less flexible. But what is advantage is actually it's a very easy to manage because it's very, very clearly defined products. And these are suitable for what type of criteria? Where where the markets are very stable, the demand is very, very clearly known, and the customer's expectations is very not very consistent. It doesn't change much. And the customer involvement is not much. But today, one more approach is also very important, right? Concurrent engineering. Now, concurrent engineering is actually also where the product design happens simultaneously. It doesn't follow a linear process. It's a non-linear process. So where design, manufacturing, and marketing, there's a lot of cross-functional movement. It doesn't follow an iteration. It doesn't follow a sequence. Now, what are the advantages? It's going to definitely reduce your development time and improve the coordination across the teams and enhances the overall product quality. And next is user-centered design and design thinking, which is also an approach to design. User-centered design. See, every product at the end of the day, the customer is going to use it, right? So the design process, the users have to be involved. That means in terms of feedback, We got to capture the needs, preferences, and the feedback. And the user research. It starts with the user research. And then the creation of a person. A person has nothing but complete details about the customer, including the demographics, behavior, and finer patterns. So this helps in creating the product. And then it goes to the portability and usability testing. Now, what are the outcomes of this user-centered design is definitely since the customers are involved in a very high degree, satisfaction is going to be very high, and also the sustainability is also going to be very vastly improved. And the design thinking is a very also a very innovative process, which has been there for quite some time, where we got to where you use 5 stages, which everybody knows very clearly, where you do the empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. Next is actually one more approach is the agile and the lean product design. So the agile approach is actually the very fast. Agility means it's very fast. And where the product is not only tested once, there's a lot of frequent testing, a lot of feedback loops comes in it. It's actually it's like a sprint. So where rapid responses to changes, which will get into this agile approach. And lean design is also very important for methodology here, where we focus on minimizing the waste because when you develop a product, a lot of resources go into it, and you've got to minimize these particular wastage of these resources and maximize the customer value. So lean design is also very important technique here. Modular, sustainable, and robust design is also some of the approaches. Modular design is actually developing a product into breaking up into independent modules rather than completely going for an assembled one. For develop, say for example, if you talk about a mobile phone, the chip gets developed independently, the hardware gets developed independently, like that. And mass customization is actually the on conventional approach. So these are some of the approaches towards that. And digital and AI-driven design is today is actually the driving force today, where we have simulation tools and we have computer-aided designing, where we use for modeling, and then AI predictive design. And when we compose the approaches of this traditional agile, lean, and the design thinking, where if we talk about flexibility, design thinking is the highest, agile is also highest, and traditional is a low. Where if you talk about the speed, agility is definitely fast, lean is also definitely fast. And the customer focus, if you talk about design thinking, is very high, and agility is also very high. So the modern companies are actually can definitely adopt a hybrid approach where we combine the agile, lean, and the design thinking and move away from the traditional practices. So to conclude, multiple there, for example, for the product design, there exist multiple approaches depending upon the requirements of the organization as well as the business needs. And it is really advised that actually organization use this combination of the methods to ensure that they build a product which is actually very simple and which is very seamless and is actually it's a great hit with the customers. So thank you very much for patiently listening. Thank you very much.